This is the Detroit Sports Podcast Network.
Welcome in, everybody, to this week's Tigers Talk with Chirco and Company. I am the Doc, John Macaroon, joining me, the best host of a Detroit Tigers podcast, Vito Chirco. Look, Vito, it didn't take the Tigers long to erase any doubt that they're not going to be participating in this year's playoffs. Getting swept by the White Sox, probably not what anybody was expecting, but it now marks the end of their playoff dreams. But at the very least, there are some things that we can definitely dive into. A player being sent down, being called up. We have an opportunity to review and explore what we're seeing from the roster. What's going on?
I'm doing all right, John. You know what? It's always a blessed experience to be here with you talking Tigers baseball, even though they're craptastic right now, once again, as people expected going into the 2020 abbreviated 60-game campaign. So they sit at 20-26, 2 games against the Royals now, Tuesday night, Wednesday night, and then you have the Indians coming up for a 4-game set. So, you know what? It's going to be rough and probably tough sledding the rest of the way this season for the Tigers. And they got swept over the weekend, as you already noted, and sad but true against the Chicago White Sox, a much better squad than them right now, a team that I believe, and I was telling my brother about it too, John, you know what? I think could make the World Series this season. With how this season is formatted and aligned, and with all the craziness of COVID-19 and the pandemic, you know what? I think the White Sox could sneak in to the World Series, be the American League pennant winner this year, and because of the strength of their lineup, and their pitching might be a little bit suspect, but I think when you get the overall quality of their ball club and the rest of the American League, John, the White Sox, they stack up with the rest of the club very, very well. And once again, I think they could be a very ferocious team come postseason.
Now, Vito, I have an opportunity now to tell a story. I was there. I was present. I heard your podcast last week, and you did a great job detailing that I was present at Comerica Park. Got my credential now for the 3rd year, getting down there. Vito, it was so surreal to be able to watch a baseball game with no fans. The first time I sat in the press box, just went up there and watched the game. Then Wednesday afternoon, I believe it was, a 1 o'clock game. I'm like, all right, you know, it's a loss, and you get a chance to see what's going on. And it wasn't just your average loss, 19-0. I believe it was against the Brewers. And it was unbelievable, the, batting prowess of the Brewers. But it's really interesting in that you have an option to sit outside or in the press box. So what I did was, I'm like, the first night I wanted to be comfortable, cozy. I sat to myself. The space is unbelievable. The opportunity that it's a little bit more quiet. Second game, Wednesday afternoon, I get down there and I catch up with colleague Jenna Rose, talk a little bit about SI, her coverage, the team. And I sit in the Tigers, I believe it's a Tigers club box or whatever it is. And it's so cozy, quiet, just getting, and I will admit, I just kind of watched it as a fan, just as an observer. And it was so peaceful, serene. It was just kind of like watching a practice or a spring training game. And I just found myself just kind of connecting with the game, just watching and going, wow, this is cool. Got a chance to see Daz Cameron's first at bat, which was, he didn't wait long. He check swinged the first pitch. So that was exciting. I had an opportunity just to be at Comerica Park, and I'm grateful the Tigers gave me an opportunity. And for the first time, we waited, Vito. I think we can't underscore, because you and I have been doing this now with the Lions. We kind of now just feel like, okay, we're part of the media. It's just the way it is. We're compensated to cover a team, but we fought hard, or I fought hard to get coverage to be able to cover a press conference for the Tigers. And finally, with this year's credential, I just said, hey, can I just be part of a press conference? Because now it's all done virtually. They probably would not have let us into the clubhouse this year, but now we have an opportunity, if we wanted to ask questions, to understand what happens. And it was so awesome that first time to be part of a press conference, because on television, it doesn't know justice. You get like a 3-minute clip. Dude, they talk for 12, 15 minutes, and he answers questions. And baseball is different than football. They open the questions, and the first person that gets in there is asking like 2, 3, 4 questions back to back to back, and you basically get the floor until you want to end it. So I'm like, this is perfect. I love it. But to be honest, it's more cordial than a guy like me would really like it to be. It's just like, hey, Mr. Gardenhire, hey, Gardy, hey, we talk about this and that. It's really low key and kind of like really, like not professional, ultra professional, rarely questioning Ron's decisions on certain things. It's just like, how do you feel about this? What about this? Yeah, they ask the questions that need to be asked, but it was interesting to observe. And I think you started to see too some of the nature of the questions and things like that. So it was an amazing opportunity. I'm so grateful that the podcast has allowed us now to at least get some more insight so we can bring it to you here on the podcast. Because, yes, while we are doing a podcast talking baseball, we want to also be bringing you the stuff that is taking place and giving you the information that we see. So it was great now being part of a baseball game with no fans. And really, Vito, to be honest, it wasn't that different than a Thursday 1 o'clock game that took place last year, because not too many people would show up anyway. So I got to witness a thrashing, 19-0. The DSP curse lives, buddy.
It surely does. And let me just say this too, okay? You got to go, and there were no fans, but like you already said yourself too, John, there would have been nobody there anyways, right? For a matinee contest at Comerica Park. So realistically, Tigers aren't missing out on having fans because they weren't going to show up at the ballpark largely this year. Now, they did have the great start to the year, and really, I didn't qualify it as great. Okay, so I'm going to qualify it as that right now, and it might sound outlandish, but in comparison to a year ago when they went 47-114, God, I mean, they had no positives, man, right? No strides that they made from 2018 to 2019. Now, from last to this year, you can say very well that they have made some strides. And sure, have they been, or has there been a ton of strides? No, that's fair to say, but there have been. And that's what we have to take away from this season, I think, at this point. Despite the multitude of thrashes now that the Tigers have endured this season. Well, overall-wise, once again, still there are positives to take away, such as Jeimer Candelario. How about him being the American League Player of the Week? That's crazy stuff, and nobody saw that coming, and Jeimer probably did not himself after his 0-for-17 or 0-for-18 start to this campaign. And people like myself, I think we're starting to give up on Candelario and him turning it around at the plate and being a quality major leaguer moving forward. Well, now it looks like, because he's showcased these glimpses of brilliance at the plate and with the good OBP, good eye, hitting for power even, and with a good glove, at least at third base, that he's a part of the Tigers' long-term future in 2021 and beyond. So that's a huge stride that he has made at the plate, and others have. And once again, I can't say countless others have, and especially when it comes to the pitching department, where the bullpen has been very shaky and late too, and their starting rotation is still in flux and has been all season long. Outside of Spencer Turnbull, who can throw it in with some velocity and have his pitches move and get batters out that way, and via the case specifically, outside of him, realistically, the rotation, they have not taken many strides in. Because you look at Matthew Boyd, right? And he comes right to the top of my head as a guy that you have to pinpoint and say he has regressed for the most part. And really, he started showcasing signs of being on the decline in the second half of last year after he got off to that terrific start. And Al Avila and company thought they were going to get Gleyber Torres from the Yankees in a trade for Matthew Boyd, which was never going to happen, guys, realistically speaking, for the left-hander. And I think Al Avila and company, the Tigers front office, found out the hard way that they weren't going to get that huge haul of prospects in return for Boyd's services. So now you go into this year, and Turnbull has clearly become your best starting pitcher. And what is the trade market for him now, moving forward into the offseason, which the Tigers, inevitably have to look forward to at this point because they're not going to make the playoffs, as you noted too, John, already. So it's about who can continue developing and really who can they acquire in the offseason via free agency. But also they're going to look at the trade market and look to probably trade some guys, even though, and really seriously, I think, start to look at contending. And maybe, they're not going to be this 80-plus win ball club, okay, or, let's just say the 80-plus win ball club in the near future, such as next year. But I think you still have to start looking to add pieces as well to this ball club in the offseason that can help you become respectable at the major league level. And once again, in the very near future, such as next season. So I know the Tigers have their eyes on that. Plus, once again, continuing to develop their young positional player talent, but also their young pitchers. And we've seen Skubal and Mize, well, they've taken their knocks, right? They've been roughed up at times. And especially Casey Mize. Well, he had his best start to date against the White Sox in his last outing, and that was a very big-time positive, which is something we have to talk about here on Tigers Talk this week too, John, the fact that he had a no-hitter at one point against those mighty tough Chicago White Sox. So his best start to date this year and of his major league career, with that being said. So we have to take the positives and those with the bad, because there have been negatives too. And still this year, just like last year, more negatives than positives. It's just there's been more positives than a year ago. And hopefully the Tigers just maintain those positives going into next season. And once again, we continue to see, John, guys develop at the major league level. The likes of Candelario, Victor Reyes, Willi Castro, and others. And, hopefully some of these guys that really are unproven to a large extent right now also take some strides at the major league level next year. And you look at a guy like Daz Cameron, and you saw his major league debut. And he's probably never going to have a great bat or be the guy that really can be relied upon as a major league starter. But you want to see him take a stride or two and maybe start to show all of us, right, as Tigers fans and pundits alike, that he can become a major league contributor. And maybe even just as a fourth outfielder, but still as something of value at the major league level. And there's many individuals, right, a variety of dudes when it comes to that. Guys that are unproven that we would like to see develop and take a step or two going into next season. And that's why, once again, next year, it's a vital year for Al Avila and company. Because Al Avila, leading into this year, as we all know by now, the narrative is that he really hasn't proven a lot, right? And that a lot of his off-season acquisition in years past and his minor league talent have not developed and have not been huge positives for the Tigers. So you need more of those guys to develop that he has drafted, that he has acquired via this route or that route. And that's what's going to be key for the Tigers in 2021 and beyond.
Yeah, Vito, we can break down some baseball. What did you make of Ron Gardenhire's decision? Because obviously he wanted Casey Mize to experience some positivity, wanted him to leave the game feeling well. His pitch count was elevated, but he was pitching a no-hitter. But once the no-hitter was broken up, do you think that maybe it would have behooved Ron Gardenhire to at least attempt, let Casey Mize extend himself a little bit and get an opportunity to come in and close it out for himself, at least to do a little bit more? Because obviously they go to the bullpen and they blow the lead, and that was a wrap. Do you think it was a mistake, or do you say, you know what, at this point in time, they're taking it easy with a young pitcher that they didn't want to ruin him, and look, pitch count dictated that his time was up. Do you think that Ron Gardenhire made the right call in that situation?
Fire him, John, right now. Fire Ron Gardenhire. Hell no. No, come on, man. Let's not talk about this as a big, a dire issue now. They've already made this horrible mistake of pulling Casey Mize prematurely. Now, with all that being said, though, okay, being the contrarian to what I just said, you could have let him stick in the ballgame, I think, a little bit longer. And I think they have to unleash the Mize, baby. All eyes on the Mize moving forward. He's their prized possession. And you want to see this baby-faced, young starting arm for the Tigers really go deeper into games, I think. And I think it can happen this year as well before we get to the end of this season. So even though it's more important preserving him in his health than his right arm for the future, because the future is what's important for him and Skubal and Matt Manning and Alex Faedo on the farm and other young arms that the Tigers have on the farm, and they're still developing. But at the end of the day, because all eyes are on the Mize, once again, no pun intended, I think everybody is just desiring him to go deeper into at least one ball game before the end of this season. And then next year, presumably, he comes up with a major league club out of spring training and can pitch 6 innings consistently. And the thing is, he hasn't done that yet. And once again, I know the fans are desiring that. But did Ron Gardenhire make this glaring mistake with pulling him when he did? I still am going to go on the record. I think we're on the record here on Tigers Talk, and say that Ron Gardenhire, it wasn't the worst transgression that he's ever made in his major league managerial career and with the Tigers. So, no, you can't get on him harshly for pulling Casey Mize when he did against the White Sox last week.
Okay, Vito, look at you giving away those free passes. Free pass, Vito. That's the way I look at it too, though, because it is a young pitcher. And for me, this season doesn't mean anything. So it just means about development. It means about just at least getting us until football. And the Tigers did that. They kept it interesting. They kept my attention. Heck, I'm still going down there. The opportunity to cover the Tigers for the KC series is there, so I'll be down there checking out the Tigers. Who should I keep my eye on, Vito? Definitely, I like to see the young players. I'm not so much, paying attention to Miggy anymore. He's still making contact, but not doing a whole heck of a lot of what's going on. So kind of looking at the pitchers. I like Turnbull. Man, Vito, in that, I believe the 19-0 game was started by Boyd. I think it was a situation in which, and if it wasn't, you can correct me, but his stuff was not there in any way. The start that I saw him live, he was totally out of control, out of sync, and it was disappointing. I think it might have been the first game back because there was talk of how important, his start was coming off of a series in which the Tigers were not playing well. But in essence, the last time I saw Matthew Boyd on the mound, he looked quite disappointing. And it's just one of those things where you can chalk it up to, a bad start, but he's trending down. So I'm definitely interested in seeing what how he rebounds. And I'm also interested in seeing the likes of Daz Cameron, seeing Jamer Candelario, and some of the guys that are, the trio of batters that are putting the ball in play. And it's nice to see. It's not all negative, but the bullpen and Miguel Cabrera are probably two of the most disappointing situations, as well as Matthew Boyd. It's just really tough because his stuff in that game that I saw was really bad. It was pretty outlandish in how bad his performance was.
Tigers got thrashed in that ball game, didn't they? And you were down there to witness it. Luckily, I didn't have to watch it live. Now, I did see the replay of it, most of it, Matthew Boyd's poorest performance in that matinee contest at Copa that, once again, you witnessed, and unfortunately you did. And I feel so bad for you. Poor John Charles Mack. What a poor soul going through that. It was just troublesome, I know, for you all afternoon long as you endured all that and stayed, I know, for sure, all 9 innings. Inside joke, I know you did not, but you don't have to reveal how many innings you stayed for on this week's edition of Tigers Talk. But you do see Matthew Boyd get tossed around, hit around, barely even get outs, and his fastball, his pitches were flat. There was no sharpness. He was not effective whatsoever, and the Tigers had to endure all of that in that afternoon contest. And Boyd has been a huge disappointment. He has been, and Miguel Cabrera, you brought him up already. He's been a huge disappointment from start to finish, as we're almost done now with this 60-game season in 2020. And his bat has really never turned it around. His power has been zapped. He hits for contact a little bit here and there, and he's become Singlio, right? He's become Singlio officially, looking like Maglio Ordonez for the end of Ordonez's tenure with the Tigers and stint in the majors. Cabrera has become in that, an old shell of himself totally, and a guy that truly hits for contact a lot more than he hits for extra base power. And it's just his inability to catch up to fastballs on a regular basis has gotten the best of Miggy with his relatively old age now as a major leaguer. So I think everybody really is done with him and off the Miguel Cabrera bandwagon, and off the Boyd bandwagon, and off the bullpen bandwagon as well to a large extent, where we've seen Joe Jimenez get just thrashed and hit around, it seems like every single time he has entered a ballgame in 2020. Others have had their struggles of late as well, specifically Jose Cisnero and Gregory Soto, two youngsters that Tigers had hopes for coming into this season and that started off on the right track. But lately, once again, the two of them and the bullpen as a whole, it has been a sign of concern, I think, for the Tigers front office and their fans as now we enter into the offseason and get ready for next year. Because the bullpen at one point, it was, I think, clearly the strength of this Tigers ball club. Something the Tigers could go to and rely upon in the middle innings and late in games when the Tigers starting pitching couldn't go deep, which has been the problem all year long with their starting rotation. The inability of their entire rotation, 1 through 5, to go deep in ball games. I mean, Turnbull just had that terrific start a couple of outings ago. And what was it? He pitched 6 innings? He pitched 6, and that was it pretty much. I mean, these guys can't go 7 innings. They can't go a complete game. And it's been a struggle once again all year long for the Tigers pitching. And they've stunk it up as a whole, rotation and bullpen collectively in 2020. And that's why their ERA is as high as it is. It's not a falsehood. It's not fake news when you see that ERA and talk about the Tigers' woes as a pitching staff collectively. And it's just been highlighted, right, in these games in which they've allowed the double-digit runs, have been thrashed as a pitching staff. It's just been highlighted in those games, such as the one that you witnessed last week against the Brew Crew. Games in which you had better starting pitching. You believe the Tigers maybe, and not in that one where they couldn't even score runs, but in some of these contests where they've given up a lot of runs, and it's been spearheaded by a veteran like Matthew Boyd. And in those games, if he would have had a better, more effective outing, John, Tigers would have had a shot to win some of those games this year, to maybe be already at my predicted win total of 24 wins, which obviously at 20 and 26 as they enter Tuesday night's contest against the Royals is feasible. So I think they're going to get to the 24 wins to the 24 and 36 mark. And actually, by the way, they're not even set to play 60 games now because of the postponement of their games with the Cardinals earlier in the season when the Cards had their COVID-19 outbreak. So they're not going to even play 60 by season's end. But once again, let's say they get to 24 and 34 by the end of this season. It's doable for the Tigers. It definitely is right now for the Tigers. But once again, in the grand scheme of things, you got to take all these losses with a grain of salt because the key focus of the Tigers this year is development. Pretty much this year, with it only being 60 games especially, serves as extended spring training. And that's why all the reps that the youngsters have gotten, such as Mize and Screwball, among their arms at the big league level. And even that Rule 5 pick Victor Reyes has gotten as a leadoff hitter. All of those reps are vital, man, moving into next year and beyond. And that has been the focus, and that's what has to be most important for the Tigers as well entering the offseason and next year.
And a couple bright spots that we can highlight before we get out of here and call it a day. Willi Castro doing his thing. I think that Slick Willie has been doing his thing and been a quality player, making sure that he's contributing, and I like what I've seen. And then potentially, now this is at the very early stages, right-hander Brian Garcia is turning out to be a reliever that maybe could be must-watch. I mean, 25 years old, 1.56 ERA, 1.096 whip in 21 games. Jimenez just hasn't has failed to grasp that position, and he just is making it really difficult for Gardenhire and the managerial staff there to put him out there because of his inconsistency. Garcia, I think, might be potentially being groomed for an opportunity to be the closer, and he's shined. I like what I've seen from Brian Garcia and Willi Castro.
Well, John, come on, man. Let's not get carried away here about Brian Garcia. A couple of outings as the Tigers closer, and you're going to jump to the conclusion that he's the Tigers closer in the future.
Take it,
I don't know about that. Come on, John.
Vito.
I love the positives, man. I'm trying to use your positivity. Okay, glass half full, not glass half empty. But 2 outings as a Tigers closer, I think, and he looked good in those outings, but that's been it. And you're ready to jump to the conclusion early here on this week's episode of Tigers Talk that he's the Tigers closer of the future, man.
Why not?
Come on, dude.
It's been
man.
It's been so bad that if you get one, I'll consider you.
Oh my God. I mean, you've seen a position player at times like come in late in a game and maybe get a few outs. Okay, come on. Andrew Romine's done that. Dudes have done that left and right, and even this year too. So guys have done it, and it doesn't mean they're going to be the closer of the future, man, instantaneously. So next year, that closer spot and that really the high leverage bullpen arm spot, it's up in the air, man. It's up for grabs. And it's, I think, Jose Cisneros to take, or Soto's, or maybe, just maybe Brian Garcia, or somebody that they add in the offseason. Because once again, as much as this is about development, we can keep preaching about development, and this is extended spring training, and it's not vital for the Tigers to win a bunch of games this year. Still, you want to add some reinforcements in the offseason to upgrade the club at the major league level and to look more respectable and be more competitive in 2021. So once again, they're not going to win upwards of 80 games next year, or maybe even not 80 or 81 wins. But I think they're going to be more competitive, and they can be expected to win 75 to 79 games. And you help yourselves out to do that by adding some reinforcements this offseason once again, and for the pen. adding a veteran arm that can pitch in the late innings and in those high leverage situations when you put out your best arm, regardless of the inning that you're currently in. So maybe Garcia one day can be that for the Tigers or another major league club. But right now, man, the verdict is still out, and we cannot jump to that conclusion despite what you think about Garcia, man.
Okay, fine. At least, thankfully, the Tigers don't have to play the White Sox and get spanked by them. I mean, that series really not a lot of positives to speak on. And, it's just a situation in which, that series really just didn't do the Tigers very well. And it's unfortunate, but I want to get your sense. How snake-bitten is Jacoby Jones? I mean, it's just a really tough situation in that a guy that, when he's in there, at least has been contributing, but he just can't stay out there on the diamond. He keeps getting plunked, keeps getting injured, and it's unfortunate because of the fact that him, along with Nico Goodrum, just injuries have started also now to impact a little bit the Detroit Tigers.
Tim Anderson, how about him too, really quick? You brought up the White Sox and how the Tigers don't want to play the White Sox anymore, and luckily don't have to. Tiger killer, hitting 500 plus against the Tigers this season, and also for extra base power on top of just hitting every single thing that's been pitched to him against the Tigers this year. But yeah, Jacoby Jones and Nico Goodrum, now you got to worry about their long-term health. And it seems like we've talked about this with every single Detroit pro sports teams in recent memory. Pistons with Blake Griffin, the Lions with now Justin Coleman, right, and Kenny Galladay and numerous others. And it seems like in their backfield it's happened too. And then with the Tigers with Nico Goodrum, who was their starting shortstop to start this season. Jacoby Jones, a starting center fielder, a guy that can hit leadoff maybe, and that they, have tried out there because of his speed as well on the base pass. But are we reaching the point where the verdict is not still out there regarding Jacoby, and where we've come to the conclusion that realistically he's got a good glove, but can't do a lot else consistently? Because the power, it's there at times, though. Guys, it's spotty, and him getting on base, he's not very good at it. He's not a prototypical leadoff hitter that you want hitting there in that spot every single game. He can't do it. He can't be that starter for you because of those deficiencies. Once again, I think a very good fourth outfielder with a valuable glove, with his ability to cover a ton of ground, especially there in spacious Comerica Park out in center field, and can also obviously cover the corner outfield spots with that being said. But he's a guy the Tigers like putting out there in center because of his speed and his ability to track down balls and to catch pretty much every single ball in his vicinity. So give him a lot of credit for that. But I don't know if the verdict is still being decided regarding Jacoby Jones. I think more and more, and at least from my perspective, the club and a lot of fans are leaning toward the conclusion that Jacoby Jones is not your everyday starting center fielder in 2021 and beyond. And Nico Goodrum, back to him really quick, who has battled the injury bug this season big time, had the chance to be the Tigers starting shortstop to start the year, but has struggled with the bat mightily ever since opening day. And now with the injury, he doesn't look like an everyday starting shortstop for the Tigers or any other big league ball club. And he's got a glove too, just like Jacoby. He's a very satisfactory defender at shortstop. But he's much more of a utility guy, a guy you don't want starting every single day. Because if you do, and the Tigers have seen it up close and personal this year, he becomes exposed then and won't be able to hit as much for average or as much for power because of the fact that he's been exposed. So you want him to be, once again, that utility guy on the infield, a guy that can play up the middle at second and short very suitably, right, or in a very satisfactory manner, and even play in the outfield at times and in center, and he has some speed, can steal some bases. But he's very much a backup as well and not a regular. And that's the same thing that I see with Jacoby Jones.
Great podcast, Vito. Always enjoy talking baseball. Real quickly, always enjoy talking baseball with Vito. I'm just curious, which clubs have you intrigued as we approach the postseason? We got word, a report came down that they're going to play the postseason in a bubble format, looking to play games in Texas and California, and they just want to get it in. And with the success of the bubble with the NBA, the NHL, Major League Baseball just wants to make sure that they get this season in. Which club should I pay attention to? Because right now I'm dialed into the Tigers, really not too much all across the diamond as I'm covering the Detroit Lions in the NFL. Which teams, which ball clubs have you intrigued when you observe what's going on in Major League Baseball?
Well, the White Sox, and I know that's a poor answer there because we were just talking about the White Sox and really talked about them ad nauseum on this week's edition of Tigers Talk. But as I said earlier, too, the White Sox right now, and much props to Dom, my brother who loves the White Sox, and he's been loyal to them probably to a fault for a long, long time, ever since he was a young lad. But they are my pick right now to come out of the American League. And this is a club that hasn't made the postseason in years. But they're good enough, man, in this wild, crazy 2020 campaign. They are good enough to reach the World Series, in my opinion. Now, out of the NL, the best team, and maybe not by far anymore, but still clear-cut, is the LA Dodgers. With all of their depth, as a lineup 1 through 9, as a rotation, just all around a very good ball club that can easily make the World Series yet again here in 2020. And if not them, it might be a team out of their division in the National League West, and that would be the San Diego Padres, baby, with Fernando Tatis, the most exciting and electric and overall best ball player in baseball right now. So with him and Machado and all these different dudes that they have, and they just added Mike Clevenger to the rotation to significantly upgrade that rotation and get them ready for the postseason. I think the Pods, man, out of San Diego there are a really good club that you have to watch out for as well, and that could very easily make the World Series.
Make sure you follow Vito on Twitter at Vito Jerome. Follow the network at Detroit Podcast. We love talking baseball. If there's anything that you want us to address, something that intrigues you about the Detroit Tigers or anything going on in Major League Baseball, hit us up. We'll bring it up. We'll talk about it. Oh, man, Vito, I'm so happy that you get an opportunity now to get some more access, some more insight, because, boy, you know it. You've been on the losing end of a lot of debates here on Tigers Talk. You're the host of this program. And so for you to keep taking L after L, I just got to get you some more insight, some more inside information, because you know I'm the one that's there doing the groundwork while you sit in your plush Delta resort and act like you know what you're talking about. So just watch those Zoom videos, learn the game of baseball, and then when you get on my level, the show can really just take off. We're at great heights now, but on the horizon, I just see great things for future editions of Tigers Talk. This was kind of like our intermediate season here as we covered a team that played 60 games. But now that you got some inside access, now that you got the ability to interact with people that know more than you can get to my level, and I can't wait.
Oh, God. Just pathetic, man. How big is your ego and head right now? Is it blowing up? Because it's about to blow up if it hasn't already. Okay, man. And I've been the guy directing the train since day one, okay, and captaining this ship and carrying the whole entire podcast because of you and your lackluster and apathetic attitude regarding the Tigers and watching them. It's been clear cut that I've been the guy directing everything behind the scenes and carrying this podcast since day one. But I'll just leave it at that, Matt. And good luck to you, and good luck to the Tigers moving forward. Maybe they win a few more games and get to my predicted win total of 24 by season's end.
Always a good broadcast. Stay tuned every Wednesday. Always a good broadcast. Stay tuned and download each and every Wednesday. Anywhere your favorite podcast is housed, all you got to do is type in 3 words, Detroit Sports Podcast, and when you hit that subscribe button, our content finds you each and every day. Talk soon, Vito. Always enjoy the conversation.
Adios.